Hey folks, welcome back to another TWiP Pro photo critique. This is critique number 165, travel. This is TWiP. Hey, welcome back to another TWiP Pro photo critique. I am your solo host this week, Frederick Van Johnson. Troy Miller is on a road trip with his family, much deserved, which unfortunately leaves me here to do the critique by myself, which is okay. So we're going to see how it goes. Anyway, let's dive right in. I'll reveal what the topic for next week's critique will be at the end of this recording, so stay tuned for that. But with that and without further delay, let's dive right into this week's critique. And we are in the community now. Let's pull down. Okay, the first one up is from Michael Rhino. What's up, Michael Rhino? Also hanging out, or was hanging out with Troy Miller in Colorado. Michael says, my travel photo is from my most recent road trip to Grand Teton National Park during October 2020. Look at that. Great shot. Love that. This reminds me of, Michael Rhino, this reminds me of, I don't know why, but it reminds me of the Incredible Hulk series from, I want to say the 80s, maybe 70s, 80s. But I remember at the beginning, and I think at the end of each show, he's walking down a road like this with his bag after he had basically destroyed the town that he just left as the Hulk. So he's basically on his way to the next town where he's going to try to, quote, blend in. Anyway, this shot's cool. Only a couple comments on this shot. I think maybe losing a bit of the foreground action, because I don't think we need that much road down here. That's almost a full third of the shot. That's road. I think we could probably lose the road about right here, or crop maybe midway in this dotted line right there, just so folks can see that, get a feel for the distance between that dotted line and this one. So crop about right there. Then you lose all this unnecessary space at the bottom. The other arguably unnecessary, depending on the usage of the photo. The other thing is the mountain peaks at the top here are very close to the top edge of the frame. So I would have maybe the whole thing could have been solved if you had composed up a little bit, so lose a little bit of the road and gain more sky at the top. Alternatively, crop, if you have the data in the raw file or the original file, crop so that you're showing more sky. And then alternatively to that alternative, add some sky with some content aware scale, or fill it in and do a sky replacement or something, just to give it a little bit more headroom. Not a whole lot, just a little, like maybe to right here, just so that there's some place for the mountains to go. All right, that's it. Cool. Thanks, Michael Rhino. Appreciate you. Next shot up is from Thomas Buckhout. Tom Buckhout, he says, traveling to faraway lands. Kurajiko. Wait, I gotta read this right. Kurajiko. Okay, Kurajiko shi. That's how you say it in Japanese. Kurajiko shi, historical district, Japan. He shot it with his Canon 5D. Let's take a look. Cool shot, man. I love this. I love what you've done with by using the extreme wide angle lens. It distorts and gives it an even more otherworldly kind of feel, which I think is really cool. If you weren't going for that distortion is easily corrected in post, either using a perspective correcting tool or depending on the lens, and if Lightroom recognizes the lens, using the correction tools in there. But I like it like this. I like it kind of weird, kind of otherworldly, with these kind of creepy trees in there reflecting on the water. That's really cool. Much like Michael Rhino's shot, I think what I would do here is lose a little bit down here. I know you'd be losing these light post reflections down here, but I don't think that's such a big deal. I'd probably crop right below this little photobombing duck over there, like right about there. You want a little bit of the reflection of this house or this building in the water, just so that you kind of have an anchor and a sense of place. But I'd probably crop it like that. And again, like Michael Rhino's, the top spire here on this building is a little bit too close to the top edge of the frame, so I would have either panned down a little bit to give me more sky, or if that wasn't possible, maybe in post add a little bit there. And then overall, the shot, I don't know, it may be Mighty's compression algorithm, also known as a sledgehammer. It may be knocking this down a little bit, but the overall image feels like it's maybe a third or a half a stop dark on the dark side. So, yeah, let me know let me know if that's Mighty or if that's was that intentional? Anyway, moving right along. Thank you, Tom. Okay, next shot up is from Mark Charrette. Mark Charrette says, Doctor Who, I found your TARDIS at the Forester's Arms. Quick, it won't be there for long. For those that don't know, let's bring this up. Doctor Who is a very famous, British science fiction, long-running science fiction show. And within that show, the show deals with time travel. Within that show, this telephone booth here is a TARDIS or a time machine. We won't go into all the details of that show. On this shot, Mark, I think it's a great shot. I think it's really cool. Captures a sense of place and all that. I think I would have either panned over to the left a little bit so that we're not cutting off the Forster's arm up here on the upper left, because, you know, our eyes want to read everything in the shot. So we get over there and then we've got this kind of button up against the edge of the shot. So maybe I would have either recomposed so that is more in the shot or less in the shot. Making it less in the shot would be challenging because you're trying to keep this TARDIS in there, and if you crop over to the right any more, you're going to put that right at the edge of the frame like that. So aside from that, Mighty Networks responding to a support request. Thank you. Aside from that, I would pan, maybe zoom out a little bit, or otherwise get more of the Forster's Arms sign in the shot. I'm on the fence about the blank space down here. I don't know that it bothers me a whole lot, especially since we're mirrored with the sky up there. So we've kind of got two triangles that are balancing each other with this triangle in the middle of content. So it's kind of balanced like that. The only other thing that I would do is, if in fact this TARDIS is part of the subject of the shot, it's blending in a little bit. So maybe depress or suppress the highlights over here on the Forster's Arms building and bring this telephone box up a little bit, not egregiously so it looks obvious, but just enough so that our eye wants to go to it. Other than that, great shot. Thank you, Mark Charrette. All right, next up is Karen Sweeney. Art at the Lights. Travel, for the travel theme. Cool shot, Karen. Yeah, we've all been right here, although there's fewer cars here than would be present in any place in California. So just a couple of quick thoughts on this shot. I know it's probably impossible to do this, but this is, I'm just saying, if I had a magic wand, what would I do? And I would wave and get rid of this car and this car so that I could see more of the background. Maybe even this table here, knock those out. So the subject becomes squarely these three faces, this one, that one, and then the one of the woman in the car. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the motion blur. It doesn't look like you were panning because the text on these guys, or the details, relatively sharp in the background and the foreground for that mark. So it looks like you were stationary and this car was moving. So maybe because we're so close, it's a little distracting that the car is then soft because of that motion blur. So I would have either panned on this car a little bit just to match it, so that the car and the person in the car would appear sharper, or use a faster shutter speed. And then lastly, these things at the bottom here, I'm not quite sure what they are. They look like some sort of speed bumps or something to keep people on the right side of the road. But regardless, they're distracting from the main subject here. So because of the way that this photo is composed, I think removing those would be relatively simple. A simple clone job, or even just a copy and paste to knock those out. But taking those out even if you did just take those out, I think that would improve the composition of the shot immensely, because now we're not drawn to this bottom edge with these foreign objects that are being cut off. We know that our car is our main subject. Anywho, that's it. I hope that's helpful. And thanks for submitting that. All right, moving right along. Stephen Scharf is up next. He says, shopping in Copenhagen. First note, please review in Photoshop. Mighty Networks is taking its sledgehammer to the total range. Second note, no sky replacement. Although I cannot do this in Photoshop because of how we have this set up, this recording set up, Stephen. I understand what you're saying about the compression. And FYI about that compression, although that note that came in a minute ago wasn't about that, I have had conversations, or I have a thread going on with Mighty Networks right now about the heavy-handed compression for images, especially on a network like us, like ours. It's comprised of people that deal in pixels. So they've assured me that it's on the list. I don't know where on the list it is. I don't know which list it's on, but that's on the list. And then the second part of my request was that members be allowed to upload more than one image at a time, basically creating small galleries within articles or quick posts. So instead of one at a time, you could do a whole series of images from a shoot that you did, instead of having them show up linearly. Anyway, I'm on it. I hear you. I'm on it. All right, back to our regularly scheduled criticism here. All right, so looking at this shot, Stephen, this looks awesome. I love how straight the vertical lines are, for one. For two, I love how you took a step to the left in this shot instead of doing what you easily could have done, is stand in the middle of the street and shot the shot and created kind of the symmetry with the buildings on the left and the right, with the triangle of the sky at the top, the triangle of the road at the bottom, and our vanishing point in the middle. But you didn't. You took a step to the side to give it a little bit more visual interest, especially since that road is curving around to the right. Makes a whole lot of sense to do that. So really, really nicely executed. I also love the two-tone nature of this building, adds interest. If it was all gray or all white and this one was all white, it'd be less interesting. But because it's breaking up like that, I can't tell if that's painted like that, if those are all light at the top, or if that's because of the way the sun's hitting them. I'm going to go with paint. But I dig it. I really like it. It was really cool. I'm on the fence. You know, like I said in the last couple of shots, the dead space at the bottom here is, I don't know. I think it's completely a subjective thing, right? Because it is, if this is a street photography shot, it is what it is. The road was there. You're not going to crop the road out. And if you crop up this high, then you lose all this interesting stuff happening on the right there. So I don't know. I dig it. I also really like the border that you put on here, the border treatment in the key line. I think it pulls out the blacks in the shot successfully. Like the blacks that this person and these people are wearing, it really plays with that nicely. So really well done, Stephen Scharf. I expect nothing less, especially these meticulous vertical lines that you have in there. Very nice. All right, next shot up is from Mr. Craig Stampfli. He says, "When in Rome," but doesn't look like he's in Rome. Looks like he's in Paris, because this appears to me to be the Eiffel Tower, though I'm not sure. Wait, you know what? Let's go look. Did he say where this is? No, he just said when in Rome. So I'm going to go with Eiffel Tower. I've stood under the Eiffel Tower and I remember this. So this looks very much like the Eiffel Tower, but really cool geometry here. Obviously executed intentionally. You know, we've got you can look in the corners and see how exacting Mr. Stampfli was with his placement of everything. I'm sure if I dragged out lines in Photoshop, we'd be able to see that this is exactly in the middle of the frame right here, this line bisecting the frame. But I really like it. It looks cool. It looks organic in some ways. It looks like a spider web in some ways. It looks biological in some ways. It looks alien in a lot of ways. But cool. And this is really impressive because, like I've said in a lot of critiques before, or even on the podcast, it's hard to take shots of iconic figures like this and do something different, which makes it kind of depressing to go see these kind of places. Is you're like, okay, what can I do that's different than hasn't been done to death? Seeing a shot like this renews my enthusiasm that you can actually get unique shots of over photographed locations. So very well done, Mr. Stampfli. All right, moving right along. Nora Zanotness is up next. She says, "Time for prayers, Buddhist monastery in Bhutan." Now this shot, the only criticism that I'd throw at the shot would be to maybe crop a little bit of this left side off over here, just to make it more balanced with this side. Maybe just a little bit. But other than that, I think it's cool. I like the shoes out here. I like the fact that they're cut off because it makes it feel more busy. I like the weathered wood because it makes it feel like this is historic and this is a place that is very well traveled. And then this relatively new looking tapestry or curtain right here in the middle is a juxtaposition of the old wood on the side. And then you see all these shoes out here, and I'm thinking, man, I want to see what's inside there. But luckily, someone has peeled back the curtain a little bit so I can get a peek inside of what's going on in there. I have no idea what's happening in there or what these objects inside are, but it's really interesting to kind of get a peek in there, just as if you were walking by on the street and you're like, man, what's going on in there? And you kind of peek through there trying to be inconspicuous and see something, and it's all good. So really cool shot. I like it. It definitely draws me in. Well done. All right, next up is Eric Pronsky. He says, "In front of Temple Bar, image taken at this well-known spot in Dublin. I blurred the motion of the people passing by with 1/10 of a second shutter speed and depended on the image stabilizer to keep the image sharp." Really cool. Okay, let's take a look at that. Yeah, I see what you did. That's really cool. In Eric Pronsky, we see it sometimes, but we very rarely see folks that are not shooting action like motorsports, like Steven and Mike Doran do, use shutter speed as a compositional element like this. So this is really cool. I see what you did using the stabilizer within the camera so that the Temple Bar building and all that stuff is locked down. But I really love the layering that happens because of that. Because you drag the shutter, we've got our people closer to the camera blurred out. Folks that were reasonably stationary in the back by the Temple Bar are sharp, giving us another layer. And then we have the building behind them, which is yet another layer. So it really feels almost three-dimensional what you've done here. I think if I were to change anything, I would zoom out a little bit so I could get more of a sense of place, because we're cutting off the building and it feels a little claustrophobic, especially with all the people in the frame. I want to get a feel for where I am laterally and also vertically, because we've got these beautiful, inexplicably positioned flowers on the top of the building, but I don't have any context as to why they're there or what's supporting them. Are they on a lattice work or is that a ledge? So giving me a little bit more vertical space, or in fact just zooming out a little bit more, would have given me more data to work with. Other than that, really cool. I love the concept. Very well executed. Thank you. All right. And the next shot up is from Michael Dury. He says, "Time travel, my out-of-the-box entry for the travel theme critique." He shot it with his Olympus EM1 Mark II. Let's take a look. Yeah, I like this a lot. This is very, obviously this is the definition of nostalgia here, right? So we got this really cool, I'm guessing a 50-ish, probably 54, maybe 53 Chevy. I'm guessing that's a Chevy. I don't know. You car people in the community, let me know. But dig it. You know what I see when I look at this, Michael Dury? I see Christine, Stephen King's Christine, and it looks like this car is trying to get me. I don't know, but cool. Yeah, I like the car. I like the concept of the Polaroid frame. The font on the chin of the Polaroid frame here, though, looks to be synthetic. I think that probably, if you could, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these ones look like a font. I think that's, very similar. I don't think humans can write that accurately. But if that was just written on there with a Sharpie or something that's less perfect. I think that would have added to the kind of grunginess of the frame and the old school of the content and the processing, and then, you know, having handwritten text on here would have sold it that much more. But cool shot, man. Thank you. All right, and that's it. That is it for the submissions this week. Very good. Everyone submitted fantastic shots. That was a good category that Mr. Miller picked. Travel. I think it was, you know, it's kind of it's tongue in cheek these days, right? Because no one can travel, but we're doing travel as a topic for the photo critique. So clearly most people are submitting images that happened when they were able to travel, which is totally fine. All right, so we're down to the end here. I guess I have to pick a favorite. My favorite, I think, is going to have to be Mr. Stampfli's here with the Eiffel Tower. I really dig this shot. I think this would look fantastic, printed large, hanging in some gallery installation with a nice big frame and some soft spotlight on it or something. You know, if that's a thing, a soft spotlight. Sounds like an oxymoron. But some soft light on it, you know, from the top. This looks like it could definitely be some abstract art here. So really cool. Thank you, Craig Stampfli, and congratulations for being the favorite. Next week, or actually not next week, the week after next, which is going to be August 23rd, 2021, the topic, as suggested, ironically, by this week's favorite submitter, Mr. Craig Stampfli. Craig suggested we do a topic that is unprocessed. So basically, straight out of camera. I'm going to call it straight out of camera, right? So no processing, no cropping, no nothing. So take that file, that JPEG file, you know, obviously you set your camera to RAW plus JPEG if you're going to shoot something fresh. The RAW plus JPEG, give us that JPEG file directly out of camera, upload that, you know, and we'll see what we get. I know we're going to get some large images, so I'm going to take the hit on that. I'm going to have to resize images down a little bit to fit on the blog and all that. But I really want to see what you guys come up with. Remember, so no processing, straight off that memory card into the submission for straight out of camera. And thank you to Craig Stampfli for that suggestion. I think that's brilliant. All right, we'll leave it right there. Again, that's going to happen. When is that going to happen? That's going to be the 23rd of August, 2021, straight out of camera. And everyone wish Troy Miller safe travels getting back to Riverside, California. And I think he will be joining me for the straight out of camera critique if all goes well. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your week. And I hope to see you on Friday at our member mixer, 6 p.m. Pacific time in Zoom. You know where the link is. All right. Have a good one. Take care, everybody.
This is TWiP.